is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Part 2, Chapter 8, Notes from the Gingerbread House. In this chapter, this is a hell of a long chapter, you guys. And there is a lot of really interesting information about recruiting breakers. I actually found this pretty fascinating. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Natasha.
I'm Miles.
And, Miles and I started to get all into this conversation before we hit record, like a couple of dummies. And we are definitely going to talk about this chapter, obviously. But I wanted to talk about what we had started to talk about first.
Okay.
Which was, don't worry, didn't give anything away, but he was talking about some of the reactions to the previous episodes in the spoiler chat, which is a patrons only chat for people who have already read this series. And people were, you said, like, either they totally understood and agreed with where we were coming from, or they were bummed but still understood.
Yeah, it was like it was kind of a deal where a lot of people were like, yeah, that's bullshit, and like, I still like the series, but that's objectively bullshit. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were like, well, it's kind of a bummer to just listen to you guys crap on something that I really like. Especially the people that, like, there are folks in there that the books were coming out, like, they were buying them as they were coming out, right? So it's like, for somebody who'd been waiting for this, it's a much different experience than going back after the fact and reading it chapter by chapter. But, one of the things that I found interesting was that a lot of the what the conversation was not just talking about stuff that happens later in this book, but also talking about stuff that happens in other Stephen King books and kind of the whole grand tapestry of things that feed into this. And it just... There was a question that came up that was like, and that I never actually answered. That was like, basically, would you guys still have done this if you had known that there was so much else that you kind of needed to read to really get the later stuff? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I don't know. I mean, I can definitely see the argument that, like, reading everything that feeds it, like, basically. So, one of the people in the chat, who has, like, read all the books, like,
all of the periphery books as well, right?
Everything that King has written, like, in order of publication to fully understand this story, right? Mm-hmm. Said that, like, they were trying to explain. We were having a conversation about why King made the decision to change the books this way and stuff. Okay. What was brought up was the idea that there was a presumption on his part that, because he took some time off from writing after the accident, right? Right. So there was there may have been this presumption that people have been waiting for Stephen King to come back to writing, and they're really going to want to read all, I think, 2 or 3 of the books that came out between his break and the release of Wolves of the Kala. So the idea is that, like, oh, everybody will get this because obviously everyone who cares enough is going to, read the other stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
I still, and my argument is still that you should never expect someone to do that much work. If your story relies on literally everybody reading everything else you've ever read to fully understand it, then it's not a good story.
I don't want to go so far as saying it's not a good story, but I don't think I don't think you can call it a complete series if it's dependent on things outside of the series. Mm-hmm. Like, that's sort of the point of a series. Like, if your 7-book-long series isn't enough space for you to create a universe, maybe you're overstretching yourself a little bit. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I don't, or you could just do something like create a, like, compendium of pieces of other stories. Kind of like, with the Dresden Files, he's done a bunch of short stories that flesh out different things, background stuff. And you don't necessarily need to read the entirety of another novel, but you get pieces that will fill in certain gaps. I could see doing something like that. But yeah, I just don't like, if that is, because when I, the other day on Twitter, I was like, does anybody have any questions? And somebody was like, yeah, are you planning on reading Wind Through the Keyhole? And I was like, yeah, I think we've said that we're probably going to do that one. And then they were like, and you should do, and they listed every other book that, is connected with this. And it did kind of make me stop and go like, is that, like, not like I was annoyed with the person suggesting it. I was annoyed with Stephen King. I was like, is this really necessary? Did he create this so that this is necessary? Because that feels super annoying.
Well, and what I wonder is that, first, I mean, I shouldn't say it's not a good story, because I really do like this story. Mm-hmm. But what I'm wondering is, how much difference does it actually make? Like, if we went back and read everything, because none of it is the continuing adventures of Roland, Eddie, Susanna, Jake, and Oy.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, like, other shit in which Walter shows up, and other shit in which other people show up, and where they talk about breakers, and they talk about everything else.
Right.
So it's all kind of incidental. Mm-hmm. And while I'm positive that reading all of that would kind of help flesh out the darker corners of, like, this clearly expanded idea that King has, mm-hmm. I have doubts that reading all of that would make the shift in content and tone between the first 4 books and the last 3 any less noticeable. Because it's not the same character. Or because it is the same characters.
And not, like, just taking into account what we're dealing with already with this series, I'm, you mentioned, like, we didn't have to wait for it the way that other people had to wait for it. And, I mean, can you imagine if we had waited for it and this is what he does to Walter? I would have lost my goddamn mind after the wait for this final book. And this is what he does. I'm mad enough as it is, and I got to just jump right the fuck into it. But if I was, like, on the edge of my seat waiting and read all of the other side stuff, which allegedly makes Walter even more of a badass.
Yeah.
And then he did this? Oh my fucking God. I would just never forgive him. The end.
We were talking about Walter in the chat, and I was just like, we were talking about all his other appearances and everything he does over the course of the series, and I'm like, yeah, it just seems like this is a different character, the one that gets eaten. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like, we're told that he's this magical kind of, like you said, badass, and he just turns out to be not that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it would be, I don't know, I kind of think it would be not the same, but I feel like I would have the same general problems with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've never read the actual books. I will say this, though. Everybody pretty much universally agrees that the demon pregnancy sucks and Mordred is trash.
Oh, good.
So
that's something, at least.
That was like, every time that came up, it's like, yeah, well, okay, so that sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like,
anyway.
Because Owen, I think I've told you, like, started to read this series. I think I told you, right?
I think you did. Yeah, I remember you telling me about Money reading it.
Yeah, he started and he stopped. And Owen stopped after book... I think he was midway through book 3. Mm-hmm. And it kind of like... It shocks me that he stopped there. But I decided, I was like, do you mind if I spoil you and like tell you what? And he's like, no, sure, go ahead. So I, said, so she gets pregnant with a demon baby that it turns out the demon stole Roland's sperm. So it's really Roland's baby. And they name it Mordred, get it? Like King Arthur. And it turns out also that the demon is like part of her and she's turning white from the feet up. And Owen's just staring at me with this face. And I'm like, I was like, it's not like, it's not as, the way that I describe it makes it sound so much stupider and trashier than it really comes across. But there really are still moments where it just is trashy.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you just kind of have to like admit that Stephen King is like a pop author. Like he isn't, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I feel like there's this sort of attitude that like pop anything is treated as if it's inherently like less worthy, but he's very pulpy a lot of the time, and like it just leans into stuff that, and I feel like people get into this headspace about his work, and because of how expansive it is and how hard he goes with it and how committed he can be, that they grant him this like respect for it that he doesn't necessarily always deserve. And I really feel at times that like, I don't know. I think that Stephen King is somebody with a lot of good ideas whose execution frequently disappoints me. And we'll see how that turns out here. But I feel like people need to kind of come to terms with like, you can like stuff that isn't great. It can be a 7 novel long series and still be like kind of bullshit, and you can still like it, and that's fine. But don't hold it up as this like flawless opus. And I've seen him refer to it as his opus.
Yeah, he has, for sure.
And I'm really
that's
just
how
like,
it's intended.
Stephen, if it is, maybe it's honestly a perfect representation of his type of work, though. Like, because so much else that I've read from him, I've felt that like really ambivalent about. So maybe this is a completely accurate kind of summary of who he is.
Well, what's interesting is that, and I just kind of thought about this, King is one of the most widely known writers of our time. Mm-hmm. Like, ask any given American, they'll probably know who Stephen King is, and I'm guessing most of them would be able to name at least one of his books. Yes, definitely. But I don't think they'd be able to name the Dark Tower books for the most part. No. And it's interesting because he has this towering place in pop culture, but it's not because of any of this. Mm-hmm. He has a towering place in pop culture because of Carrie and The Shining and The Stand and like all the books that are associated with him on such a fundamental level, partially because they've been filmed, but like partially that's just like, I think probably The Shining is his most well known. Like if you say Stephen King, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, the guy who wrote The Shining, mm-hmm. right?
Or It.
Or It. I can't believe I forgot about It. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. So it's just interesting that this series, like the one that is meant to kind of be the common thread running through everything, and and giving him the credit and saying that he has planned out a majority of this, which I feel like he probably has. It's just fascinating to me to think of the fact that, like, most people, that's not the thing that he's known for. He's not known for his opus. Mm-hmm. If that's what this is. And when The Dark Tower finally got made into a film, what was it, last year?
Yeah, that didn't go great.
Not a lot of people liked it.
I mean, how are you going to try and make something like this into what? This, as we have already pointed out, barely sits within the 7 books that it's written as.
Yeah.
So how are you going to try and condense that into a movie? Are you fucking high? Like, what are you even... The fact that they even attempted that is just really evidence that they hadn't read this shit. Like, there's no way somebody who actually read this series would have been like, no, yeah, that makes sense.
Can I spoil you on something from the movie that I was spoiled on? It's not anything really big.
All right. Why not? I don't plan on watching it, to be honest.
Apparently, how we were talking about... I'm sorry. How we were talking about how, like, Walter should have been the dude in charge of the prison?
In charge of the prison?
Yeah, the Breaker prison.
Oh, the Breaker. Okay, yeah.
Apparently that is how they do it in the film.
Ah.
So I thought that was interesting.
So they actually, tried to make use of him properly. They tried to correct King's mistake.
If you go to that movie, do you think you're seeing that spider? I'm very curious about that.
Would I expect to see that spider?
Would you expect to see the spider in the movie?
No, I don't see them doing the whole Susanna pregnancy thing. I haven't even seen Susanna mentioned in the thing. In it. No. So I don't think that they're have her as a character. I don't know about Eddie either.
Yeah, I haven't seen any. I believe they are both cut out for the film.
Yeah, okay.
Which is just that was when I heard that I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't care. But anyway, the actual chapter that we came here to talk about awaits us.
Well, I just want to summarize, guys. I haven't read that much Stephen King. I have read It, which counts for 3 of his books. I've read Bag of Bones, and I've read these 6.5 now. Bag of Bones doesn't feel like it actually starts until halfway in. And It is one of the most rambly things. And despite that, I really liked It. I was a big fan, even though it was all over the place. But it's he just doesn't really rein himself in. And I think this final book is just the worst example of that so far. So yeah, that's where I stand. I'm realizing I just don't think I really like Stephen King's style sometimes. And there are parts of what he does that I love. I love him ducking into other weird side character POVs. And I love him getting into a backstory of something that you at first don't think you care about. And then you get really sucked into it and invested. And he does things like that beautifully. But he does it, I think, so well because he loves it. And then he goes way too far because he loves it. And starts to make that the whole book. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's what happens. He starts just kind of shoehorning everything else in to fit this thing that he loves. And it just, not exactly letting the story develop organically and more just trying to make it a real certain thing. I feel like that's kind of been the issue. But anyway, yeah, I've read more Stephen King than you, but still far from all of it. I mean, the dude's super prolific. But I really like Carrie. I really like Salem's Lot. Yeah, I love Salem's Lot. I like The Stand. It's a lot of his early stuff. I really enjoy, and I love the Dark Tower series. I mean, I objectively do really enjoy this series, but this book has a lot of problems, and it brings up a lot of just kind of interesting things to talk about in terms of the creative process and how you get from one thing to another. And it's just a really unique example of how a certain kind of story can play out. And I think, that's why it's so interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I like this chapter is a good example of like when I realized that we were going to be getting like Breaker backstory. I started off just like, oh my God, really? Are we really going to do this? Like, we've spent so much time throughout this series just sitting and listening to people tell their story.
Yeah.
And we're in the like last book and we're really starting to get into some shit, and I just don't feel like sitting still and listening to a story right now. So I started off with just a bad attitude when I was like realizing where this was going. But then it wound up being really, really interesting. Yeah. So like he can get me. It's not like he is good at what he does when he does it properly.
Absolutely. And I like Ted. Ted's a good narrator. I like him in Hearts in Atlantis, and I like him here. You know, and it's just he's got a very like Ted has a very, like, elitist, beaten back down into being the common man kind of vibe. Which I find endearing, personally.
You?
I know, it's crazy.
So, yeah. He is telling us the story here of how he discovered that he had these abilities. Not even how he discovered, because by the time he gets into the story, he's really starting from the moment that he decided to tell somebody that he had them.
I think he says he found out like when he was like 6 or 7. Is that right?
I think so. And he tries to use this ability, his telepathy, to help the army. And they just do not seem interested at all in what he can do, which just blows his mind initially because, you know, he was, it's what, World War I? Yes. And he is like, I could have ended the war in like 2 months. If they had just used me, it would have been over. But then he realizes that these guys kind of want to fight. Like, ending it and doing it smart, like, that's not cathartic.
Yeah.
And that's what these people are often looking for. And
well, not only is it not cathartic, but it doesn't make anybody any money.
There's that as well. So, yeah, he goes in there really thinking that he's going to nail it. And the doctor whose mind he reads, name a number from 1 to 1,000,000. Yeah. He names the number and the doctor fucking lies. Uh-huh. And he's like, are you, what? And then tries to be like, write it down so you can't cheat. And he won't. He like just walks out.
Yeah.
And I really liked that moment because that felt really true. People have very puzzling reactions to things that I often don't understand because my brain just works in this certain way. And I just can't process throwing away somebody who has this kind of ability. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But once he framed it as, yeah, they just want to duke it out like the way that it's always been done. I was like, yeah, you know what? That does make sense. We're afraid of new stuff. And probably if he went to somebody higher up, if he wasn't dealing with like a doctor, then maybe. But this,
I feel like at the very least somebody higher up might be like, hey, so we're not going to use you to actually end the war just for these bullshit reasons I just made up. But here, we got some other things you can do.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, after watching Stranger Things, it doesn't seem like they shy away from these kinds of experiments, right? Wasn't this something that, like the whole thing with Stranger Things is based on actual, like, wives' tales and urban legends about the kind of experiments that they were doing during the Cold War, right?
I've never seen it, so...
You haven't seen Stranger Things? Oh my god, I keep forgetting that. Yes. Well, there is a little girl who's like a weapon.
Okay,
and,
cool.
You know, they are creating people in order to break through enemy lines and see conversations and stuff like that telepathically. And that, like, they're like working to create people like this from scratch. So if somebody just walked in and had this ability, but I can understand if an actual medical doctor who has never encountered this kind of crap would just be like, yeah, I don't think so, buddy. Like, this makes me, A, really uncomfortable, and B, I'm not giving you, like, I could see just being like, I'm not exposing more people to this, because that's just fucking creepy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, you know what's weird? For some reason, this puts me in mind of a book that I wish I hadn't read. Because I read because it won the Hugo Award in 1955.
You did this for your blog, right?
Yeah. And it's a book called They'd Rather Be Right, and it's universally considered to be the worst book to ever win the Hugo Award.
That's so funny.
Which I have a whole essay about it on universeofthemind.com about linking it to the prevalence of Scientology at the time, which I think is probably accurate. But there's a scene at the beginning of this book, because there's a psychic kid in this book. And there's a scene at the beginning of the book where he's being, like, tested by some kind of doctor, and the doctor is like kind of wants him to be psychic, and the kid is trying to hide it.
Okay. So
the kid starts, like, guessing wrong. Like, he wants him to, like, tell what playing card he's going to turn over, right?
Right.
And the kid guesses wrong every time, which, like, tips the guy off that the kid's psychic.
Because
like,
wrong.
Statistically, you should be able to be guessing. You should be guessing right at least once in a while. But it's just a really interesting scene, and it's, usually when we think of science fiction, the government and the doctors and the military, like, are trying to find these people, right? That's kind of the prevailing narrative,
right.
I think, as opposed to some telepath being like, hey, I'm here.
I'd really like to do this, please.
Check me out.
Yeah.
Which we, of course, learned that there is a group looking for these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was just barking up the wrong tree, that's all.
Yeah, he should have just gone straight for the Crimson King and been like, Hail Discordia, motherfucker. Got telepathy.
I've got telepathy. It's like he's got some sort of cold. Oh my god, I got telepathy. Can you believe this? Oh, right before my wedding.
Told you not to go to Vegas.
So, yeah, he gets rejected from this, and he winds up having this, like, moment where he just loses control because some guy mugs him on the street.
Mugs him, yeah.
And he gets shoved into a post and understandably loses his shit and, like, turns and looks at the guy, and it's like a spear. He keeps describing it as a spear. And the guy just drops dead. And a bunch of kids see it. And he just has to be like, you didn't see anything. You didn't see anything. And one of the kids, like, really flinches when he looks at them because they know what just happened, because only kids would, like, really believe it. I like that it's kids that saw it. Because adults would never put it together. It's children who would see it and be like, oh my god, that motherfucker just killed him with his mind. And the kid flinches, and that's the thing that he says really sticks with him, is that a child was, like, afraid of him.
I mean, you just killed somebody.
Yeah, but he says that.
Yeah.
That's what he
definitely does. There's this weird question here. First of all, I want to say I love the specific thought that he uses to kill him.
Oh, yeah, I could have just given you $1 if you asked.
Yeah. Say, buddy, I would have given you $1 if you'd asked, maybe even 2.
Yeah, really harmless sort of thought.
Yeah, and, like, there's this question here of whether or not, like, whether Ted should be considered a murderer for doing this. Mm-hmm. And he, of course, comes down really hard on himself and says he was there and he's going to use the word, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see both sides of it. And I think the quartet does. They take a little break right there. And,
I don't know.
He killed him by accident, but he still killed him.
I am willing to give people so much slack that it worries me sometimes about, like, my morality. Because to me, this wasn't murder. It was an accident with a power that you didn't even know you had. And you thought how you would have given him $1. Like, you didn't think, oh, you motherfucker, drop dead. That's not even what you thought. You were like, oh, well, if you really needed the money. No, you're not a murderer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a good point. We will get back to your morality, though, Natasha, because you're definitely not leaving here without answering question 23 on Ted's little breaker quiz there.
Listen.
But yeah, I think that's accurate. But I'm not surprised that a kid was freaked out.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So
yeah,
he goes on the run.
He just bails, which is like, honestly, it's kind of crazy that he just bails. Am I wrong? Yeah, some kids saw you. So the fuck what? Who's gonna fucking...
There's no evidence.
Nobody knows that this has anything to do with you. And running away does not keep other people from being at risk. You're still around society. It's not like he locked himself in a tower. Get it? Away from everybody and just was like, I can't be in contact with human beings because I may lose my temper and accidentally kill one. No, he just leaves the town where he, quote, murdered somebody that he totally didn't really murder and nobody saw it. And even if they did see it, it doesn't make any human sense, so they would never call it that.
Yeah, I don't...
Am I crazy?
No, and I'm trying to find if there's like an explanation. There really isn't. It's just like he sees the kids. It says he takes another look at the body on the sidewalk and the frightened kids. Then he runs, which turns into a career.
Right.
Yeah, and it just says that he ran. Like, he didn't... I don't know. I mean... I don't really know what the point in running was.
Yeah, me neither.
So, but it's kind of Ted's thing, He likes being on the run and hiding from people who want to use him.
But he wanted to be used. Like, that was the whole thing.
I know. There's a real strong thread of, like, self-hatred.
Yeah.
In Ted. And it's interesting because, and we'll get to question 23 later on, of course, but he knew, when he answers that question, which is about what you would do in a certain situation, he knew the way he would actually answer it. But he also knew that wasn't moral enough, or that was too moral, rather.
Right.
So he answers deliberately in the way that, like, just the most asshole way possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like he's got a moral compass, he's got a conscience, and he knows he's tossing that out the window here.
Mm-hmm.
But he does it anyway.
Yep.
And it's just I find his descriptions of, like, the nature of the person who would do this and, like, the nature of the society they have in Algul Siento to be fascinating. The whole Morks thing.
Yeah, it's not, like... Because really what it seems to come down to for him is the idea of having a talent. And realizing, they want this answer. I want somebody who actually wants what I can do. So I'm going to say whatever I need to say for them to take me on, because I can do an amazing thing and literally have nowhere to direct that. So, you know what I mean? So that's where I really, I was fascinated by this idea of a talent that, like, is banging on the wall, trying to be used, and you would think something like that would be super useful, and then everybody would want to get their hands on you, and it turns out, it's just not in the cards for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I found that really, because, I feel like in some ways I have kind of experienced that on a low-key level of just, being good at a variety of things, and like not good enough to be a prodigy that could really like break out, but good enough that like it's an option for me if I want to do it. And so I get dragged in too many different directions because I can't figure out what I should be doing, but it's in the back of my mind, well, maybe I should do this. Should I do that? I'm pretty good at that. Maybe I should do that. And it just like, you know, it's taken... The best advice that I ever got was like, being successful is knowing what to say no to. Because sometimes being able to do something does not mean that you should do it. Being good at something doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it either. And he's an amazing example of that. He is able to do a superhuman, baffling thing, and maybe he just shouldn't.
Right.
The end.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear that, though. God, who would want to fucking sit on that?
No, and we should talk about the fact that what we find out he can actually do beyond just his own telepathy is that he facilitates other people who are psychic. So he just kind of gathers all of them up and makes them work better. But what I wanted to mention earlier was just his description about what it's like to live there. Because he talks about, you know, like what you were saying, like not the kind of person who maybe should be doing this even if he can. And he talks about how most of the people who live there, and I'm quoting here, are selfish introverts masquerading as rugged individualists.
Whoa.
They want the world to see them as Daniel Boone types, and the Algul staff loves it, believe me. No community is easier to govern than one that rejects the very concept of community.
It's pretty good.
I fucking love that. I love that so much.
Feels really relevant.
Yeah, and I love that it comes right after the notion that like most of these people could be classified as sociopaths. So basically what you're saying, Stephen, is that whole rugged individualist mentality is inherently sociopathic, which I agree with.
You know? Listen, I've said this about libertarians forever.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm about to get some emails on that one.
Tell us why you voted for Gary Johnson.
But yeah, I that moment, like, that was really funny. Because it just, you, like, we're going to pretend that it's, well, you know, I just go no, you just don't give a fuck about people. And that, you know, just own that. If that's how you are, then that's how you are. But just admit it, please. Don't pretend that it's that you're somehow more elevated and logical.
Right.
No.
In my ideal society, we would lock you up if that was provable.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, I'm going to give you a nice room to sit in for the rest of your life, and you can have all kinds of things and never interact with anyone.
So, yeah, and he, as you said, is able to accentuate everybody else's abilities. And he says that it's not like, oh yeah, I boost them, you know, give them 25% boost to their stats. Like, it's an exponential, insane boost.
Yeah, it's like 10,000 times.
Yeah.
Before.
So finding him has shaved literal centuries off of breaking the beams, which is basically turns him into someone so valuable that he can escape and get dragged back, and they'll just give him a ginger ale and some cookies and be like, well, just, you know, don't do it again, because they just can't risk damaging him in any way.
So, real quick, I want to say the funniest thing to me about that, about like when he comes back and they question him about how he left, and he doesn't give up his like Cantoi buddy who he kind of read thoughts from when he could, and he obviously doesn't give up Shimi, who was the actual person who teleported him away.
Right.
But what he tells them is, I don't know, I just went to bed and woke up there.
Oh my god.
And they're like, can you do that?
My favorite thing is that they scoff at first, and then they start to be like, well...
Right. But to me, it's also like going back to the previous chapter with Prentice and Finn Leotego hanging out. And they're like, nah, there couldn't be any telepaths here. Except for that one guy who may have accidentally done it to himself that one time.
Right.
But, he's cool. We need him.
So we're just going to turn a blind eye to that very questionable story.
Which, is pretty brilliant considering they believe that they could suss out a teleporter if they had to. And B, that, of all the people that could be accused of doing that, he's the one person for whom it's not necessarily a death sentence.
And also, if he did, he is not somebody with abilities that could get him back. Like, if he did accidentally teleport himself, he can't, be like, oh, well, I guess I'll just head back. He doesn't know how to do that.
Right.
So, I like that, too, that it's like an out for how it actually happened, and an out for why he didn't turn around and come back.
By the way, do you want to talk real quick about how fucking awesome Shimi is?
Oh my god.
Because Shimi's amazing.
I am so happy that at the very least, King is letting me have Shimi.
Yeah.
At the very least, he was like, all right, he's still great. Thank you. I needed that.
Yeah, that was one really, that was one moment where it was like, okay, he found a place for this story element from previous books, and I really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And not only can Shimi teleport, but he can actually, as they realize at the end of the chapter, literally create the magic doors.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
they're convenient and comfy to walk through.
Which is
they don't throw up after.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And he can sometimes use those doors to take people into places where time isn't a thing and everything around you is candy.
Listen. Are Shimi and I secret soulmates? I think we might be. You can just give me a break from everything without me actually having work piling up on the other side while I take my break. And I'm laying on actual marshmallows, and that's just what life is.
Not sticky ones, though.
Not sticky ones either. I really appreciate that he goes out of his way to hammer home how they're not sticky.
Right, because they're not. Shimi's creating them not to be marshmallows, but because he heard about this gingerbread house and it sounded cool, and he wants a bed you can actually sleep in.
Same.
Yeah, right. And Roland also tells the members of the quartet, as they talk about Shimi, that, he and Cuthbert and Elen always kind of wondered, what's with this guy? Because he said that he followed us from Megis, which is fucking impossible.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I like that also, that detail, because I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that it's it's just really a kind of comforting reminder of their old camaraderie, Mm-hmm. And it's oh yeah, Shimi, man, he was special, wasn't he? We always thought he was, but we didn't know like this. It's nice seeing Roland, there's a moment at the very beginning where Ted mentions something about Shimi liking bright colors.
Yeah.
And Roland kind of, smiles and nods. Mm-hmm. And that just, got me.
Oh.
It's he knows what Shimi likes, too. He knows Shimi better than you do.
They're buddies.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. It's adorable.
So, yeah.
Also, Shimi is the one who sent Ted out and been hey, you should find my friend Roland, because he's pretty great.
I love that he's the one who sends him out, and he also is hey, do you want to get out of here?
Yeah.
And Ted's what do you mean? And he just looks at him bitch, please.
That's exactly what it is. It's fuck it. I think it's described as, don't insult my intelligence, don't waste my time, don't waste your own. Mm-hmm. Which is let's just do this, shall we?
Yeah, I feel him on that. Oh man, nothing gets me more irritated than somebody putting up a weird fight about something that's not going to help you in the long... it's just admit the thing so we can move on, please. It's not even I'm mad at you. I just want to just be over it.
Right. going back to Ted's story, he after he's on the run after murdering a guy, which how great is it that, like, his story starts with him accidentally murdering somebody, and, like, his whole purpose in the story is to, if he continues, accidentally murder a whole bunch of people?
Everyone.
Yes,
literally
everyone.
All of them. Pick someone, they will die.
Right. And so he's on the run, he starts seeing all the star symbols, which is a thing that it's a big deal in Hearts in Atlantis.
Okay.
So in Hearts in Atlantis, he I don't know if you want me to talk about it or not, but it's not really a spoil. I mean, it's kind of a spoiler, but not much of one.
All right, don't do it. Then.
Okay, all right. I won't tell you what happens in Hearts in Atlantis, but anyway, he gets picked up by the low men, and they're like, "Hey, you want to fucking work for us? We'll give you $1 million."
Yeah, and it's weird because they do, but then he can't use it because they take him away.
Right.
So it's kind of like,
well, when you
didn't
get done,
really have to give it to him, though, guys. Like, you could just, all right, sure. And
well, I don't think, are they actually going to? Because, like,
they actually transfer it, and he gets to go home, and they're like, you can draw on it immediately. And meet us back here at such and such a time. And he talks about how, so their money was going to sit in their accounts and turn into millions, and they'd never be able to spend it.
Right. Because they can spend it after they get done with the job, which, as previously mentioned, is killing everything.
Yeah.
And Dinky still says they're cheapskates for how much they pay him.
I mean...
Which I like that.
He's apparently right. Like...
Yeah.
Yeah, that is some... I mean, this whole thing, the whole setup is just so strange, you know? It just, like, I get so hung up on stuff like that. I get hung up when a character, like, in a movie orders food and then immediately leaves. I get hung up when somebody's given money and then they don't get to spend the money or they don't pay attention to the money.
Uh-huh.
Like, I just... It's hard for me to let go of things and understand, like, yeah, this is a fictional universe. It's okay, sweetie. Just relax. Because I just get so, like, no, but, food, money, keep, it's do something, you know, like, I am not used to not having to worry about that kind of thing. And so when a character displays some kind of, like, indifference to it, it's hard for me to accept. And it's not like he's even indifferent here, because he's thinking about it and just kind of like, fuck, you know, but he realizes too late what he has agreed to, because he did not ask hardly any questions to begin with.
No, he says, like, he basically just wanted to be able to do it because he could.
Yeah.
So speaking of questions, Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
You come to a stop near an overturned car on a little traveled road. Trapped in the car is a young man crying for rescue. You ask, "Are you hurt, young man?" Which is totally something you'd say. To which he responds, "I don't think so. In the field nearby is a satchel filled with money." Both of those words are capitalized. You, A, rescue the young man and give him back his money. B, rescue the young man but insist that the money be taken to the local police. C, take the money and go on your way, knowing that although the road may be little traveled, someone will be along eventually to free the young man. Or D, none of the above.
Yeah, so this is a weird question because I am in, like, a whole other, like, none of the above camp. Where I just, you know, he's trapped. He's in a situation where he could use my help. What if I'm like, "Hey, is this your money? Well,
right.
Why don't you make it worth my while here, and I'll get you out of there. Because there's a bunch of money here. You could probably split it, right?" But instead, it's, trust that that's all his money. Or be so mistrustful that you turn it over to the police, which is straight up, like, that is some snitchy shit. Don't do that.
Yeah, for
police
sure.
will keep that money, guys. Do you know how much fucking cash police confiscate and never return for no reason because they can? The whole system around confiscation of property is just fucking bananas. Research it, you will not believe it. So no, I will not go to the cops with the money, but crazy, what? No. But I also don't just want to be like, well, obviously, this bag o' cash must have been yours, you honest person who probably didn't get in a crash speeding away from a bank robbery. Like,
well, there's so many details that I feel like are missing from this description.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's trapped in a car. By what?
Right. But he's fine,
Can
though.
we at least start? He's fine, but what's going on with his car? Did he have the lock stopped working? Like, what's happening here?
He's like a dog that got left in the car for too long. It's really hot today. Help me out.
And there's a satchel full of money, like, in the nearby field. Like, there's nothing to me that suggests that money belongs to this kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing to me is like, well, I don't want to just give him the money and not ask any questions, but turning it over to the police is just such a completely dick move that there's no justifying that to me.
All I'm saying is that in this scenario, it seems to me that I'm walking down the street, I see a dude yelling for help in his car, which he's trapped in, but nothing I can see is trapping him there. I see a bag full of money in a field, like who knows how far away. I mean, I feel like C might be the right answer.
I go with none of the above. I try and cut a deal with him on the side.
All right.
Listen, I won't tell the cops that you clearly robbed a bank. If you will just, I don't even want half, buddy. Just give me like 20%. That's fine. All right, fine. 15.
I'd just be like, I'd grab the satchel and be like, hey man, fucking unlock the door. Then you can get out.
And then you'd shoot him. Keep the money forever. Why is that not an option? Murder the man in the car.
Just kill him. Kill him dead. Kill him with your mind powers.
You look at him and think, I would have given you the money, and then he just dies.
Now you look at him and think, hold on, let me get your money for you. Oh no!
I'm a murderer.
Guess I better take this money.
Whoops!
Who else is going to need it?
Gosh darn it, I did it again. I guess I just have to take custody of this money now. What a shame.
Just Ted. He's wacky.
Oh, Ted. Damn it. Keeps turning up on my doorstep with bags of money and shaking because he killed somebody. Keeps happening. But my rent's paid this month. Let me make you a cup of tea to calm you down, Ted. Then I'm going to send you back out there. That would be so funny if, like, you realized that he was able to do that, and you just started to get onto the like police scanner and send him into high stress situations, hoping that like he could stumble on something. Anyway, we got a little off track there, but yeah. So as you said, he tells them what he knows they want to hear.
Right.
And they are aware that's why he did it, too.
Yeah. They ask him. They're like, why did you pick C?
He's like, He doesn't even try and, like, equivocate on it, either. He just straight up says it. Well, that's what you wanted.
Yeah. He's like, that's what you wanted, and I want to work for you. Which I'm just wondering if is this a standard part of the test? Like, why you answered that question?
Yeah, this is kind of getting into some stuff with, like, there's a whole thing in Leftovers where there's this really risky procedure and all of these people are being interviewed to see if they can participate in it. And they're all asked the same question. If you had to kill a baby, but killing the baby would cure cancer, would you still kill the baby? Like, cure cancer for everyone forever.
Right.
And you see them ask more than one person. And one of the people says yes, and they are not approved. And the other person says no, and they are also not approved. And so you really aren't sure, like, what answer do they want? Or is it the way that people answer that, like, determines whether or not they're, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a, so that's my thing here is, like, is it actually the answer that matters, or is it just how you answered?
I think I would kill the fuck out of that baby.
I mean, you know, it's not like when both answers, like, make total sense, and that's kind of what I really liked about it, was that, like, when one guy says no he wouldn't and they won't approve him, I was kind of like, oh, come on, really? Like, I get why you wouldn't obviously kill a baby. But then when somebody says yes, you're expecting that that's what they want, and then they just don't. And so that makes it so that it's not the answer to the question isn't what fucking matters here. So what is it? And you start to obsess over what could possibly, and you never find out. You never find out exactly what they're looking for, or what the tell is that they're keeping an eye out for when people respond. And so this really strikes me as something similar. Is like the answer, it's not that. It's like how you face up to it after they ask you about it.
Right.
And the fact that he can clearly tell that you wanted a certain answer is, you know, evidence of him being gifted in some way. So.
Yep. Also, this guy interviewing, his name is Frank Armitage.
Yeah, okay. What's that? Because I read that name and I'm like, okay, we know this guy, but what is he from?
I don't know, so I just Googled him.
Okay.
And, first of all, he was an Australian-born American painter and muralist known for painting the backgrounds of several classic animated Disney films.
Okay.
Including Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, Mary Poppins, Fantastic Voyage, and The Jungle Book.
Weird.
And then here he is on the Dark Tower wiki page here.
I could have sworn that he was like a character from something else.
I thought so too, but he's not, it seems like. But interesting name. I wonder if that was intentional? It seems like it was intentional.
Doesn't that sound so familiar, though? Like it's something? I don't know.
Oh, there's also a Frank Armitage in fucking Doctor Who.
I haven't seen that, which is definitely not.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like a really familiar name.
Somebody's going to message me and be like, girl, you dumb. Did you not see this?
It was in Breaker High, probably.
Oh, my God. I really, like... It's going to be so... Because if I use that theme song as the theme to this episode, and we don't start talking about Breaker High until now, people are going to be completely baffled.
Are we just going to, like... You want to just cut this to the beginning, then?
Yeah, that's what I'll do. No.
All right. Because y'all, I don't know if you know this, but Breaker High has 11 letters.
Shut up.
No, it does.
I know it does.
And Ryan Gosling does, too.
And so does Tyler What's-His-Face.
Yeah, so does Tyler What's-His-Face.
Yeah, guys.
They all have 11 letters.
When we were trying to talk about Breaker U earlier, I kept wanting to say Breaker High, and I couldn't figure out why the fuck I kept saying that. And then I remembered that Breaker High was a show in the 90s with Ryan Gosling. It was a high school on a cruise ship, which is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And I loved that show. I was obsessed with it. It only ran for one season, but it had like 40 episodes. I don't know how. Don't ask me. But yeah, it's like the opposite of British television.
Yeah, that definitely is a thing that I have seen, that I watched as a child at least once. I know it for a fact, because it was too familiar. When I listened to the theme song, I was like, yep.
Yeah, I like the whole idea of a high school on a cruise ship, first of all, was just irresistible to me. And then Ryan Gosling, of course, I thought was adorable. And he was like
yeah.
young Hercules, so he already had that going for him.
Wait, he was young Hercules?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Man, my childhood.
Yeah, he's had it going on for a minute. So, all right. Sorry, we just like keep going off topic here. Sorry, everybody.
I wanna talk about a couple of things here. One thing that I wanted to ask about was, well, there's two things really. One is that the thinking caps reappear here, the protective helmets that block telepathy. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that at the beginning of the chapter again, and I forgot about it because we skipped over it, but Ted is talking to Roland and is like, "Where are you in your journey? I know all the points where you will go," or whatever, somehow. And he's like, you know, "I hope you get here. Ka is with you, but the Crimson King is sending out a powerful wave of anti-Ka."
Yeah, about
and I'm just curious as to what you think about that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I wanted to talk about it, but I forgot all about it in the midst of everything else.
Yeah.
What do I think about that? I think it's hilarious. Oh, okay. That's a thing now. Midway through the fucking final book. Anti-Ka. And that's what you came up with. That's the word that you went with. I don't know, put anti in front of it.
It just seems so like... I don't know if it seems more like a desperate attempt to be like, "No, guys, it's okay. There's a reason to believe it won't all work out."
Honestly.
You know, like, there are stakes here.
That, like, it doesn't even work because if he's been sending out Anti-Ka and everything has worked out for them the way that it has anyway, I guess Anti-Ka don't mean shit. Because they have, like, really had it pretty great.
The Crimson King is, like, you know, fucking waving his hand somewhere going, like, "No, my servants, I am putting out Anti-Ka!" And he's just, like, I don't know, doing a crochet pattern.
Oh, my God.
Like...
I would love it.
Like, I'm totally doing something to stop them.
They'd be like, "Sir, that's not really... No, I swear. I'm gonna do it." And they just have to humor him even though nothing happened. No, one of them dropped their pencil, I think. So, keep it up, sir. Like, you can't... This is the danger of doing things the way that he has, where he makes everything work out at the last second. Now he's realizing that he didn't make any mistakes, and it's too late.
Oh, I kind of love it. I just kind of really love it. It's like, fuck, Anti-Ka.
Right?
It's like it's almost the kind of thing that you would throw in as a placeholder. Like, if I was writing this, I'd be like, all right, Ted talks to them about their journey and hopes they'll get here, but wait, of course they'll get here. Anti-Ka, make a note, come back to this later.
I don't know. I'm trying to be like as optimistic as I can that things are going to make me care again. But as of right now, the Anti-Ka thing really kind of... I saw that and I was like, that's really the best you could do. It's not even like he like commits to what that means. He doesn't really give any examples of like, well, you know, in this thing, like it's just this whole like vague... I mean, Ka is supposed to be destiny, basically, right?
Yeah.
What does anti-destiny even mean? That doesn't mean anything.
Quantum physics? Maybe? I don't know. No, it's just a weird thing. It's just such a strange thing to throw in.
It just feels so lazy.
Yeah.
Like,
it's really...
I'm just going to put Auntie in front of the thing. I'm not going to explain anything about it. And I'm going to hope that that is enough to make you nervous as a reader.
I hope it comes up again later and that I just don't remember. But as of right now, I don't remember the concept of Antica ever coming up again, and that just makes me laugh. One thing I do like is a couple of things here. First of all, Eddie realizing as Ted's talking that Henry would have been a great breaker.
Yeah.
Which I really love. I was like, oh god, yeah, he would.
'Cause he's a fucking psychopath.
He's a fucking selfish indulger.
Yep.
He's an indulger of his own desires. And then, speaking of that, I also really love the scene where Ted describes what it's like being in the study and, like, feeling the beams with your mind.
Oh, yeah.
And just, like, it's this sexy feeling of, like, oh, yeah, I am doing something with this ability that I have.
Yeah. I
really appreciate everything they talk about with how the breakers work. I think is really well done.
Yeah, agreed. The description of it as being something sexy was just so unexpected.
Yeah.
But I really liked that as, like, because there are just some things that when you're really good at them and you get to exercise that ability, it really is just like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
So
I have, like, fist pumped while audio editing before.
Oh my god, you're such a dork.
I've scared my dog. You've been like, yeah, fuck you, motherfucker. You can't even tell that was there. Don't tell me you've never done it.
I honestly can't say that I have. Like, I'm thinking about it. I may have, but I don't think I've ever been that excited. Audio editing is not something I'm ever very excited about.
I guess that's fair. It is something that I get really into. So,
you're precious.
Yeah, I know. But,
you know what it is for me? Cooking.
Oh,
When I cook something and I taste it and I'm like, oh, I nailed this so fucking hard. I had that the other night. Like, I just had some stuff and I was like, I bet I could make something with this. And I made a soup and I took a sip of the soup and I was in the kitchen and Owen's sitting on the couch and I just go, and Owen's like, wow, that was real good, huh? I was like, babe, come here. And I had him taste it and he just went, Jesus. I was like, I know.
Oh, man. See, I never get that feeling when I'm cooking. I'm just like, well, shit, this probably tastes good together. Regardless, I'll probably eat it. So.
Well, that is one thing, is that even if it's not great, it's like, well, I'm hungry and it'll be fine. But
yeah, but when you nail it.
And I nail it frequently enough that I just, like, get really fucking smug about it. But yeah, I like that description also. And it's such a weird, like, you know, we saw what that study is like from the outside, but to hear about it from his point of view is really interesting because, you know, it's so different coming from that side of it. And to hear, like, there's a part of me that wondered if it's not like uncomfortable or like too much labor for them. Like if they would feel like they were slaves basically after a time, but apparently not. It's just, they are all getting to use an ability that they didn't think they would ever get to use.
Yeah, and I do really appreciate that it's like, we're not just hunting for telepaths or psychic people. We need a certain kind of person that we can control and that we can be pretty sure will be totally fine with what we're doing, or at least won't care.
Right.
So,
well, at
like,
least not ask questions until it's way too fucking late.
Right.
Apparently.
Yeah. So, Ted talks a little bit about... What?
TED Talks. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Damn it.
This chapter is just one big fucking TED Talk. I didn't even think of it.
It's the original TED Talk.
Oh, God.
We didn't have TED Talks before 04, did we? I'm pretty sure we didn't.
No.
Yeah, so this is the first one.
That's funny.
Alright, so he makes friends with this Trampus dude. He realizes that when he, like, takes his hat off to scratch his head, he can read his thoughts. He finds out what... Yeah. He finds out what they're doing and makes the break for it with Shimi's help. We talked about that. What else is there here? What else struck you about this chapter?
I'm trying to think. Oh my god. I just was like flying through things and I realized that part where he's talking about how after getting mugged, his pants were like hanging down weirdly because the guy hit him so hard. And a man with his pants mostly pulled down so his boxer shorts show. For all he knows, his dingus could be hanging out the fly of the front. And wouldn't that just be the final magical touch? I forgot about that. That's funny.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the anti-Ka was really the only thing that I can think of that I just was like, yeah, we're going to have to talk about this. Oh, I also like they're killing the little man, but misspelled.
Yeah.
Because that feels right. And let's see, what else?
I mean, I feel like mostly the last thing we need to talk about is they figure out when Stephen King's going to die.
Oh, duh. I totally forgot about this.
There's nothing really... He finds out from Trampus, he goes, they bring him back, and he says that one thing he got from Trampus is that the writer is not doing his thing.
Right.
Trampus told me that the Crimson King has tried to kill this man, but Ka has ever protected his life. Which I feel like maybe if you use some anti-Ka there, buddy, you might be able to maybe kill him.
Anyway. Like, really? I'm not even kidding. Why would you bring it up and then be like, well, but Ka protects him? Why are you going to even talk about it and then act like it
Yeah. I don't... The important thing is that Susanna finally tells them that she heard about Stephen King dying.
Fucking finally.
And they work out that... Between them, they work out the date, which is June 19th, 1999. Mm-hmm. And they're like, holy shit, we have to go save him. But Roland's like, well, we have to save the Breakers first, because we know that Shimi can probably send us there, but we don't know if he can bring us back.
True.
And we need to fucking save the beams and shit first. And then they're trying to figure out like which is the right course of action. They realize that King bought the house on Turtleback Lane where all the walk-ins were when they left.
Right.
Which is a nice little callback to that being a special point in the Keystone world, as they call it.
Right. I'm sorry, everybody, if you can hear my cat just caterwauling outside. Now I understand where that word comes from.
My dog was in here earlier playing with his toys, and my wife came in just cracking up to take him out, so it's pretty funny. So, yeah, and then they say, they're trying to figure out which of these things to do first, save the beams or save the writer. And then Jake is like, well, we should ask Shimi, which I don't totally get, but sure.
They have to find out if he can bring them back, right? So I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Like he would be able to tell them that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just weird because, like, they say, Susanna's like, well, we should ask Ted before we make our decision, and Jake's like, no, fuck that, we ask Shimi. And I'm like, can't you ask them both? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Didn't really occur to me, but I guess I'm just so eager for Shimi to get more involved in everything that I'm just 100% fine.
That is totally understandable.
With them being like, no, Shimi, and I'm like, correct. I'm always going to agree with you when you say no, Shimi instead.
Oh, and also Mordred's been listening to all of this as well.
Whatever.
But it looks like he takes off before the conversation about when King's gonna die.
That's true. He retires to contemplate, which just... What? They're talking about... What is it that he says he's going to contemplate? I'm trying to find the spot exactly.
It's the thing about how... Now, however, Ka, not the Red King, but plain old Ka, has decreed that this man, this guardian or whatever he is, should die. He stopped, you see. Whatever song it was he was supposed to sing, he stopped. And that has finally made him vulnerable. But not to the Crimson King. Trampus kept telling me that. No, it's Ka he's vulnerable to. He no longer sings, Trampus said. His song, the one that matters, has ended. He has forgotten the rose. And that's when Mordred withdraws.
Yeah. Does it make sense to you that he withdraws there? Because that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, no, but, like... I don't... Like, I guess that would be interesting to Mordred.
Yeah, it just feels like King just didn't want him to know the next thing that was going to be happening. And he just needed him to go away.
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's not like Mordred can go, like, kill him, right?
I don't know what Mordred can do.
I mean, I guess maybe,
I have no understanding of this character.
Yeah, that's true.
You know? I don't know, like, we have people who can, like, traverse space and time. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit weird. It's just, there doesn't seem to be much of a purpose to it narratively, but maybe he just, like, is the idea that maybe it's the Crimson King part of it. He wants to think about Dad some more, or maybe, like,
It seems like it's really... that he's forgotten the rose part to me that, like, makes him stop and think, but I don't know. What did Mordred know about King before listening to this conversation?
Nothing, as far as I know.
Did Walter know about... Because he absorbed some of his knowledge, right? Walter's. When he...
Yes.
Did Walter know anything about King?
Well, now I want to go back to the chapter where Walter dies and see if he has any thoughts about King. But I don't think there's any reason for it.
Because, like, the fact that he wants to sit and contemplate could be explained by him finding out for the first time about the whole thing with King in the first place. I could buy that. That's true. Because that is a pretty big reveal if you didn't know about it. That, oh yeah, there's a writer who holds our fate in his hands, basically.
Yeah, I don't think Walter mentions the writer at all.
Okay.
Which would be weird, though, right?
Would it? Like, I don't know what Walter knows.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm assuming... Like, I don't know, it's hard because he's off doing his shit over there. So I'm not really sure what universes he's ducking in and out of and who he's coming across when he does that. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, the way we know him to be now, he probably wasn't even doing it. He's probably just, like, hiding behind a tree and, like, waiting for people to be gone and then saying he went to another world.
Oh, God. Don't you even... So insulting. It just is, isn't it? Like,
yes. Anyway.
Yeah, so if that's what it is, that would make sense. If, like, guys, everybody listening, if you think that's what it is, or if you have some insight as to what Mordred might know, hit me up on that, because, you know, that's kind of a big deal. Like, Mordred, you know, I'm trying to take him seriously as the big bad now. It's hard, but I'm trying. And
we appreciate you.
If he is going to be the big bad, he needs to know about this guy, and getting all of this info just dropped on him this way would be a shock. But then you would also think that if it's a shock, you're going to want to stand there and listen to everything, right? And be like, wait, what? A writer? Like, that would be... who just takes that kind of thing at face value? And it's like, let me retire to think about the writer who's writing us into existence. Like, you're going to want to stand there and hear everything they have to say about that, right?
I would think so, yes.
You are being so noncommittal about everything.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like if once we get to the end of the book, I feel like we're going to have so much shit to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to have to do like a couple
say.
wrap-up episodes.
We might have to, honestly. Like, when we get to the end of this book, we might have to do like a few wrap-up episodes, because there's...
People are going to be sending in all kinds of things to tell me about.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that just Mordred and Walter and whether or not anybody knows anything is something that I could talk about, but like... I can't talk about it without spoiling stuff, right. And also I just, like, I legitimately don't know. It's like, does that make sense? Kind of? What would I do if I were a spider baby?
Oh my god.
Like...
And there's Wind Through the Keyhole. Oh, and there's also Little Sisters of Illyria, which is a prequel to the first volume.
Okay.
Which is a short story, apparently. So I'd like to check that out, too. If anybody has, if anybody's got a Dropbox that's cut together pieces of outside books, because I'll tell you all right now, I appreciate your eagerness to have me read all of the side books and Salem's Lot and everything. It's not going to happen as part of this feed. If I read those, it's going to be part of like the book club, and it's going to be a whole separate thing, unless it feels like it's so linked that I absolutely have to talk to you about it. And then, I'll figure something out. But it's just not... I am not really going to hold my breath. And I would suggest that you all not hold your breath also. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds like that's this chapter covered.
Yeah, that seems right.
Let's do 2 next week.
I am doing the Dead Zone for the book club, though, just so you all know, in September.
Well, I'm sure that shit has... Maybe you'll find some Dark Tower connections.
Probably.
Hold on, now I want to know what Dead Zone has connected. But, yeah, let's do 2 chapters for next week.
2, okay.
And that'll work out really well.
Okay. And I will fuck it up by reading 3, and then you'll be mad at me. It's fine.
No, you haven't done that since that one
I've
time.
only done it once ever.
Yeah.
Which is, like, in 6 years, not bad. So I'm not going to beat myself up on that too much.
No, I would not do that.
Okay, so I'm going to say hi to new patrons real quick, because we've got a bunch this week, actually. I think it might have something to do with Harry Potter being back. What do you think?
What do you
Guys,
know?
if you didn't know, the Harry Potter reread has come back. And we took a little hiatus because we were covering Westworld, which is awesome, and I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it yet. And we've come back. We're starting Goblet of Fire, which is like probably going to be the best to reread. And it's patrons only, $1 and up. So if you want to get in on that action, it's patreon.com/unspoiled. And everybody seems very excited about it, and it's adorable. So, new patrons this week. JMW, Samantha Bizesse, Lucia Bennett, Cheryl Pryor. What's up, Cheryl? I know her. Paige Geyer, JSP, Kaylee Zollinger, Rachel, Anna Saraway, Veronica Karolek, Kristen Emerson, and Kate Tangus. All became patrons. So welcome to all of you delightful, beautiful, gorgeous people. I'm hugging you with my heart.
Yay!
And Make sure to join the Patrons Only Facebook group. Some of you have already. And also don't forget that there is a Patrons Only Discord server that there is a link in Patreon. But if you are having trouble finding that and you need it, hit me up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/unspoiledpod. Just shoot me a message and I will give you the link to the Discord server. Also, yeah, I should mention this. I am trying to change up the way that I take messages and like interact with people.
Oh, yeah, do it.
Because it's been really like, you know, initially you start a podcast, it's a small thing. You have people messaging you here and there and it's no big deal and whatever. And then as you start to get bigger, you get more and more people messaging you. And I don't know if you guys use desktop Facebook very much, but when you open desktop and you've had people DMing you, little boxes open automatically at the bottom of your browser. And if you haven't checked the message yet, they're all blinking. So imagine that you get around minimum 15 messages a day. And every time you open your browser, there's 15 blinking boxes at the bottom of your Facebook. And you don't have time right now to respond to them all, but you swear you're gonna. And you feel bad because you haven't yet, but you just don't have time. And you can't respond to one without responding to the others because some people, like, you know. And then you don't do it for 4 days. And then once you look, you've got 55 blinking boxes. Every time you close one, another one, like, you close it and it slides over and the next box that you haven't, checked yet takes the previous one's place. So it just never ends until you've closed 55 of them. Guys, it's a lot. And if you DM me on my Facebook page for the show, it doesn't happen that way. It gets put into the inbox for the show, which is so much more manageable. And I'm also able to make notes on my end so that I can keep track of, like, this person was talking to me about this, so that I don't completely lose track of who you are, the questions that you asked, whether or not you're a patron, what you're getting involved with. Like, it's so much easier to keep track of everything on the Facebook page for the show. So I'm just asking everyone, if you are, you know, not just a friend of mine who wants to chit chat about life, if you are a listener who is DMing me about stuff to do with the podcast, please start using the Facebook page for the show to message me instead. It will make my life so much simpler. It will guarantee that I see your messages also, because people will message me who aren't friends with me and they get filtered into that side folder and I don't see them for like 6 months, those messages. Because, you know, I know that, like, you get a notification, so-and-so is trying to get in touch with you. But when I already have 40 messages from people who are actually my friends and I'm not replying to those, do you think I'm going into my, like, side folder to see the people that I'm not friends with? No, it's not happening. So if you want me to see your message, that is the way to go. Facebook.com/unspoiledpod. Message me on there. And I apologize to everybody who messaged me, who isn't friends with me, and who just never got a reply. I'm sorry. It's just, like, so backed up now that replying at this point, some of them are over a year old. It would just be insulting. But
I know you don't remember me, but, like,
it's gonna be, it really is, like, some of them, it's stuff that was a little time sensitive too, and I'm just like, why would you choose this method? But you know, I'm just trying to draw some firmer boundaries and make things that are work related go into my work box so that I don't have to try and figure out how to delineate between my professional life and my personal life, because the nature of podcasting and how social it is makes that really challenging at times. And I have to keep some spoons for myself and not for work. Yep. But I am a social person, so my instinct is to give everything. And then I am resentful because I have no energy and I'm mad. But I have nobody to blame but myself. And that's not a good way to be. I don't like blaming myself for things. Who likes that?
Nobody wants to do that.
I don't like to take responsibility for my problems.
No.
This is bullshit.
Why would you do that?
So, yeah, just wanted to let everybody know about that. And also co-hosts. I got in touch with pretty much everybody, I'm pretty sure, but people who are consistent co-hosts and that I've co-hosted with recently, I've created a Slack, and y'all are added to that. But
so exciting.
Yeah, the Slack thing will be a lot easier for sharing files and stuff like that. And, if there's new co-hosts, I'll add them to it. But at the moment, I just pretty much added everybody that I'm like currently hosting a show with. Or that I like really recently hosted a book club with. That's about it. So yeah. Anything you want to add on there, mister? You want to take it away?
Sure. You can find all links to all my stuff over on mjschneiderman.com, mjschneiderman.com, which is definitely not a mouthful. And yeah, you can find me on the Smash Fiction podcast, which is super fun. We love it. And, that's going on. And the Odyssey Storytelling podcast is great. And we love it. And, that's going on. And then you can find me here every week here on the Unspoiled Dark Tower podcast until we finish this book. And maybe another one. And then, I don't know if there's, I don't know if there's anything else that we could potentially cover down the line, Natasha. I wouldn't know these things. But for now,
I don't know what you're talking about. What?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if there were any other ideas that either of us may have had about something else to cover.
What?
I feel like, I'm just saying.
I don't know.
Like,
what are you talking about?
It's a hypothetical.
If you guys want to know what he's talking about, it's facebook.com/unspoiledpod. More info to come, possibly, maybe. No guarantees on this.
If you accept this idea, I want you to do it on the air.
Oh yeah. Did you see that? Like the patrons only thing that got voted up was Black Mirror.
No.
Yeah, I posted a poll in the patrons only Facebook group and was like, "Hey, what should I cover next for $5 and up patrons?" And Black Mirror has been voted to the top. And I said not necessarily with Miles, because I don't, like, your schedule's nuts. But just, people want it. They really want it.
Jumping back into that well, I don't know.
It's a pretty rough well. I have heard, though, that there's one episode that's, like, actually uplifting and beautiful.
So that is actually... That is the only episode of season 3 or 4 that I have seen, and it is beautiful and glorious, and it makes me so fucking happy.
Oh, there you go. All right.
So there is that. I have seen that one episode because I was in LA visiting Dan and Kid. Sharon and I stayed with them when we were on our way back from our honeymoon, and they were like, what should we watch? We should watch something short. Like, and Dan was like, "Have you guys seen this episode?" And we're like, "No," and he made us watch it, and it was beautiful. And I loved it, and it made me cry, and it makes me cry every time.
Aw, you're adorable.
Right on. Well, if you want to do that too, that's fine. I'm just saying if there might be other ideas potentially is all I'm saying.
There might. I mean, I'm really I'm getting to a point with Unspoiled that I feel like I have so much content, y'all. It is banana pants. I have had to upgrade the server that I'm on, the virtual private server, twice now because I have taken up all the memory. And DreamHost is just like, seriously? And I haven't uploaded everything yet still. So I'm going to have to upgrade it again, and I'm not excited about it. But because I have so much content already, I'm feeling much more freed up to do kind of weird stuff that I haven't done yet. Yeah. So there is a lot that I'm considering that I haven't considered before. And then there's things like Unsober, which is a show that I'm not it's $20 and up patrons only. And it is not covering any media. It's just me and Rashawn talking about a different subject every week or every 2 weeks. And that is a totally different thing. Not covering media. I've never done a show like that before.
Right.
So, and I've gotten very good feedback on it. I'm going to post it on this feed, I think, because I posted it on the Harry Potter feed, and I was sort of reticent about, if people follow more than one Unspoiled show, then they're going to get notifications for the same podcast on all the podcast feeds. And then I was like, nah, whatever. You guys can deal with it. It'll be fine. But Unsober was really fun to do. So if y'all have $20 a week to get an extra episode, 2 episodes a month, it is really fun. And Rashawn and I are going to be splitting the money from all of the $20 patrons so that she can get some cash coming in, because she needs money too. And I really want to, get to a point where I'm starting to be able to pay people for going above and beyond. And this would be the 3rd show she's hosting with me. So she's got a lot happening with me, and I feel like she deserves to get some back. So that's why it's $20 and up. It sounds steep, and maybe it is steep, but I think it's worth it.
I think so too.
All right. I feel like that's it. Is there anything else?
Yeah, that's it. I almost forgot to let you guys know to check out universesofthemind.com for absolutely no new content whatsoever yet. But someday.
Oh, you.
I didn't want to leave that out.
I really enjoy how it's just every week I'm going to start cutting together just the moments where you plug it, but then like kind of the addendum. I'm just going to cut together the addendums into like best of.
I mean, or just like me trying to do my fucking plugs in general. We were talking about the Smash Fiction host and I the other day. We're talking about how like we're all really bad at like plugging the show and like explaining what it is. And I was like, yeah, it's a running joke on Unspoiled. How bad I am at it.
Plugs are just awkward. Shit. Are you all right? Did you just fall down?
No, I just knocked my big ass Dark Tower book off my desk.
Is this Freudian? What's that? Did you just rage quit?
No, my elbow hit the book. What do you want from me? Kind of hurts. Not that you care.
I don't. It's true. Give me that bag of money. I'm leaving you here. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week with 2 more chapters. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.